Biodiversity Act. And he has said many wonderful things over time. I just happened to pick this one from 2022, where he talks about being poised in Australia to finally stop the war on nature that our culture has represented, and to use this pivot point to not only restore nature, but also to help deal with climate change, that finally the planets begin to align. But it doesn't just happen because of complacency, because we think it's obvious and logical. It happens because we collectively make a decision, and one of the ways we do that is through legislation. So the Biodiversity Act that will be coming into Parliament shortly does three things. First of all, it takes the bones of its structure and its content from existing good legislation. The Native Vegetation Act, so there's habitat, and the wildlife part of the National Parks and Wildlife Act, puts those together and makes them stronger. It modernises them, it toughens them up, it makes them easier to use. So while I say that largely we have done a great job at stopping bad decisions, we need to continue to do that, and we need to make sure that we're doing that in the best way possible. So that's the base of the Act. The second thing it does, though, is it puts the emphasis on the clarity of decision making based on science. It requires the Minister for the Environment to gather data, to provide data, and it inserts that into decision making earlier in the Planning Act, in mining, in all of those areas of human endeavour that otherwise could make errors through lack of perception of what the challenges are, through lack of clarity and knowledge about what's there. The third element, though, is the one that I find most exciting, and that is that as much as it's terrific that we've largely stopped making poor decisions about like doing broad-scale clearance, nature has taken such a hammering that it is still in a very weakened state, and we need to restore it. And in restoring it, we hold the answer to helping us get to net zero. No one thinks we'll get to net zero by 2050 by not emitting any carbon. We all understand that we need to use nature, and nature can help us as it always does. So the third element of the Act is to create the legislative architecture to say South Australia is a place that understands nature restoration. That is a place where you can invest big corporations seeking ESG credentials. South Australian corporations that understand that if they're going to sell to Europe, if they're going to sell to young people, if they're going to satisfy the demands of long-term capital investment, if they're going to be part of staving off the insurance industry collapsing, then they're going to have to be part of helping to restore nature and reduce carbon. And also the major philanthropics, because there are so many good people around the world that want to be part of solving this, but need to know that when they invest in nature restoration, that it's in a place that truly understands and can legitimately explain the benefits of what they're doing. And so the remaining part of our legislation is to create that legislative environment that says South Australia is a place that's safe to invest, to where you can restore nature. I fully intend that when this legislation is through, the next step is a prospectus that says, if you want to help save the planet, come put some money in South Australian nature projects, because we understand it, we have the science, we have the people, and we have the legislative architecture to make that secure. I'm going to show you the last picture I have is a lovely bit of restoration that was done by Greening Australia. That's WOMAD money. That's all the lovely people who go and celebrate the world of music and dance in Adelaide every year. They just pay a little bit more on their tickets so that their carbon offsetting and nature restoring. It's not a lot of money that's gone into that particular bit, but it is an enormous step forward. We have the capability to take that kind of transformation and make it at landscape scale. And that's what resilience looks like. And that is also what hope looks like. Because I was talking with a couple of people this morning, some of the presentations that we inevitably talk to in this conference are pretty challenging to take on board. It is not possible to talk about climate change without terrifying people, because otherwise you're just not quite being honest. But you must have the next step as well. So what do we do? Don't be the failure to act society. And our action must bind up nature with climate response, because it's beneficial for both. And it is the pathway that our young people are absolutely expecting us to do. Now, I'm a politician, I'm allowed to talk about elections. I was so pleased about the result on Saturday, as you'd expect. But part of it was because it felt like a repudiation of the pathway that was a climate denialist pathway, which is not to say everyone in the Liberal Party, and certainly not Liberal voters, don't recognise climate change. But the strength of the vote said to me, we want to stay the course with a government that does recognise that climate change is real. What we all need to do is help that government turn its sights now on nature reform, on seeing the link between the two. I think they have an appetite for it, but we need to be part of helping them see that pathway. And my hope is that our biodiversity legislation will help guide that, because that's what our people expect. And as I say, government at its best is a representation of what the people want and also what the people deserve. So thank you for being part of this conference. Look out for the biodiversity bill when it comes through, and let's continue to hold on to hope. Thank you.